When you look at people who are successful at anything, they have great habits. You know, you often hear people say, well, the secret to my success was this, or the secret to my success was that. But the reality is when you dive in, when you really get deep into the daily lives of people who are phenomenally successful, what you discover is they have these habits that are just rocks in their lives, that keep them grounded, that keep them anchored. When things get tough, when things get great, these things keep them grounded. If you look at the lives of the saints, you find exactly the same thing. The saints, they had these habits that were just sort of boulders in their day, boulders in their lives. They kept them grounded, they kept them anchored. And they were not extraordinary habits. They were very, very, very ordinary habits. You think about the habit of daily prayer. It's an ordinary habit for a saint. There's not a saint in the history of the world that didn't have a habit of daily prayer. It's a really ordinary habit. But when it's placed in our lives as an anchor, when it's placed in our lives as sort of an immovable object in every day, it becomes phenomenally powerful. You've got good habits, you've got bad habits. Our habits, in lots of ways, determine our destiny. You know, tell me what new habits you're working on this year, and I'll tell you how your life will be different this year than it was last year. Sometimes we get obsessed with a bad habit. I think particularly when we start trying to grow spiritually, when we start assessing our lives and our character spiritually, we often, most of us, come to some bad habits that we realize, wow, these habits have got to go. They've got to get kicked out of my life. And I think the amateur mistake is to focus on that bad habit. And in many real ways, whatever we focus on tends to grow in our lives. So the more we focus on it, the more we obsess about it, you know, the harder and harder it is to get rid of that bad habit. You know, I think people have had a lot of experience with these things, a lot of experience with the spiritual life, a lot of experience with helping people change their lives, would say, okay, yes, that's a bad habit, but let's crowd it out of your life. Let's place new good habits in your life and crowd that bad habit out of your life so it has no space in your life to live. And I think there's real wisdom in that. So whether you feel like you need to grow a great habit or whether you feel like you need to get rid of a bad habit, I think you have to say, okay, what habits do I have to create to crowd that bad habit out of my life? And maybe the good habit is the one, but chances are there's a lot of little good habits needed to crowd a big bad habit out of your life. And we all have them. You know, you've got your thing, I've got my thing, the things we struggle with. And sometimes we can be on a great path, sometimes we can be in a fabulous season in our lives. And in that season, you know, we tend to be able to overcome, you know, that bad habit, that central bad habit of our lives. But then seasons change and, you know, we do experience a storm in our life or we do experience uncertainty in our life. And it's very easy in those times for those bad habits to rear their ugly head and to have a place again in our lives. But make no mistake, our lives do change when our habits change. If you have not been in the habit of praying daily, and you take 10 minutes a day, every day for the next 60 days, 100 days, it's going to change your life. You know, it's not so much about the habit. I mean, in that particular case, it's an extraordinary habit, a very, very strong, powerful habit. But our lives do change when our habits change. So how is it that you want your life to be different this year? How is it do you feel God is calling you to be different as a person of character and virtue? And then reverse engineer it. You know, ask yourself, okay, what sort of great habits would that person have? If I was that very best version of myself, what would be my daily habits, my weekly habits, my monthly habits, my annual habits? You know, a lot of great spiritual heroes had an annual habit of going away on retreat or going away on pilgrimage. So it's not just the things we do daily, but to create this ritual, this rhythm, these very powerful routines of habit in our lives, over time becomes incredibly powerful. It's like the ocean. You know, you see a huge rock face at the ocean, and you ask the question, over time, who's going to win? The rock face, it looks strong, right? It looks powerful, it looks immovable. But over time, the ocean's going to win. In fact, the ocean is winning. If you go back and you look at where that rock face was even 10 years ago, you realize, wow, the ocean's winning. It might take a long time, but the ocean's going to win. And habits, it's like that. It's just like that steady in and out of the ocean, just breaking down whatever the rocks and barriers and obstacles are in our lives.